Hello everybody, I'm Chuck Gibson and this is Loveland Beacon Talks. Today it is my privilege to have with me, even though by phone, I have with me Abby Docherty, formerly Loveland. Some of you may remember her from the Loveland Stage Company, from Loveland High School Drama, but Abby is now singer, actor, dancer professionally. And so, welcome Abby Docherty. It is good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited to chat with you.
Well, you know, I as I told you when we were talking offline, I didn't come to grill you with questions. I want you to share with us what's been going on in your career. It's so exciting to have somebody from here at home in Loveland that's out there, you know, I hope, making a living, you know, singing, acting, dancing, and for everybody here, it's like, let's catch up with Abby Docherty. So what's been happening and what is happening right now for you?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I absolutely take so much pride in my small town roots. I love being from Loveland and from Cincinnati. It's so much fun to connect with other people. And I live in New York City now. I've lived here on and off for the last almost 8 years since I graduated college. I know, time flies. I took a brief hiatus. I went to Nashville during COVID, but I've lived in New York City and I absolutely love it. I do sing and dance. I majored in musical theater and I have, you know, made my life following that dream, and a lot of it in part I think is due to the amazing training I got growing up and the opportunities I got at Loveland High School and in the community. I mean, Cincinnati has such a great artistic scene, especially when you get out to the world and you compare it to other cities. It really is top notch. So I'm always proud to be from where I'm from, and I'm very grateful for the foundation that I had that brought me to New York.
Well, you know what, Abby, that's a pretty strong testimony, especially to Sean Miller. I mean, gosh, you know, like the background and what you learned at Loveland High School in drama with Sean. It's like that's a great testimony to, and
it's so true. He is so wonderful, and the program he's built is so incredible. And he pushed me. You know, he really did. He pushed me. He believed in me, and he saw something in me, and he pushed me. He definitely made me a better performer and gave me a lot of, you know, really a good, strong work ethic, I think, too. You know, so much of what we do and what we did in high school with the show choir and the hours put in and the drama and all of it was really prepared me well for the grueling real world of musical theater performing. But when I think back on how many hours we spent rehearsing and the discipline that goes behind it, you stand still, you don't, you know, you do your rehearsing when you need to, and you follow instructions, and it's a lot of people. You have to be respectful, and there's a lot of discipline in that. And I remember being in a room with some Broadway performers, and they complimented me on my discipline, and they said, "You are so disciplined in a rehearsal room, and that will help you work." And I actually give all the credit of that to Sean Miller and the Loveland show choir and drama.
Oh, yeah.
He taught us how to be professionals.
Yeah, you know what? And shame on me, Abby. I definitely should have mentioned not just the Loveland High School drama, but certainly the show choir, where you guys, oh my God, you guys work, and still the Loveland show choirs still work so hard. So I definitely can relate to what you're saying there. I'm not that disciplined. There's no chance. Stand still.
Maybe theater is not for you, Sean.
Well, and see, there you have it. Now you know why and just for fun, you know, I did that one show with your dad.
You did.
And
which one?
Yeah, well, it was Annie, Get Your Gun.
Oh, that's right.
And
oh my goodness.
You know what? And so people should know this, because obviously, all you know, your roots here, but also those family roots, and I'll ask you in a second, you know, to share how much just your family roots have meant to you and how they carry you through in your habits and your disciplines. But your dad, so of course he was Frank, So he was I was actually the first one on stage because all my role was I wasn't in the show, so to speak, but because I covered those shows and they always were saying, Chuck, you should do it. They don't understand. I cannot do it. I can't remember lines. I can speak. I can do public speaking. I do that. But to go out there and like perform as a character or something, I can't remember my lines. But they said, the people at the Loveland Stage Company are like, Chuck, you got to do something. So we came up with, I could be the one that comes out, but I would do it in character as opposed to just come out and make the announcements of like, okay, here's the exits if there's an emergency, and no smoking, no drinking, no telephones, no video, all those announcements that they make before the show and before the lights go down and all that or whatever. So we said we're going to do it in character. So I came out as a cowboy. But when I went back after I did my thing, and it was, it was somewhat, it was done with some humor, so got everybody laughing and, kind of got the audience warmed up is what one of the other performers said during, that whole run. But again, when I did that, and then I went off stage, your dad was coming on as Frank, and of course singing "There's No Bit," and I'm gonna ruin this whole thing by singing.
You should sing it. Go ahead.
No. There's no business like show business. I'll just say that. But your dad sang it so well. Anyway, but he's coming out, and so the trick was the guy at the curtain there. He had to pull it back, and I had to exit like on the right side of that because your dad's coming in on what would have been his right side, but and we got to make sure we don't run into each other and just stumble or something like that. But it was that whole thing, I still had to memorize just that opening, and I was nervous. I was nervous. And so the cool thing, this lends itself to the family that you grew up in. Your dad and myself and a couple of the other performers, right before it was time, we would be backstage and actually get down on our knees and say a prayer for the show. And I mean, I know you.
That sounds like my family.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's your dad, and I was always so grateful for that extra special. Just that was some extra special support. But anyway, so tell the listeners, tell your friends back here at home in Loveland about what has that family unit meant to you as you got out into the professional world.
Everything. My family is the most supportive and incredible group of people I've ever known. I always am so grateful to be just from our group of five. My family is so supportive, and my parents are at everything. I mean, I could be singing the alphabet backwards, which I can't do, by the way, and they would show up and support me. And I genuinely think, coming from a family that was musical, and definitely my parents sang in church when I was a kid, and I started singing in church. The first time I sang in church, I was like 3 years old and sang "Jesus Loves Me" in front of our whole congregation. But as I got older, my parents helped start a church in Mason, and we were there every single week, unloading a truck, setting everything up. My parents both sang. My brother is very musical, whether he acknowledges it or not. My sister, not so much. She was a cheerleader, but we just grew up in such a musical household. So I think growing up listening to, and it's funny because I have so many friends in this industry who grew up in church backgrounds, and they're so musically inclined. They hear harmonies well, they blend well with others. It's all these things that I think you learn from just sitting around live music. I think there's so much to be said for being exposed to live music at such a young age. And so really my family kind of set that foundation, and theater was never a part of the plan. My dad was dared to try out for Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at the Loveland Stage Company. Right. It was a dare because he was a really good singer, and we loved the Donny Osmond movie, and our family best friend dared him to audition, and when he got cast as Joseph, believe it or not.
Yeah.
He said, "Can my kid be in the show?" And you were supposed to be 10 years old, but I was 8 years old. And they said, "Sure." So everyone jokes and says that's where I got bitten by the theater bug. But that was the first time I ever performed on stage, and from then on, it was like when a kid finds their sport. That was my thing. And I'm very competitive by nature. I'm very driven by nature. And it was like I wanted to be on the best team. And I'll tell you a quick story. Speaking of Annie, Get Your Gun, that was the next year. I believe I was around 9 years old.
Yeah.
That was the first time I didn't get something. And I remember auditioning for Annie, Get Your Gun. I still wasn't super comfortable singing in front of people. And my dad came home from the callbacks and said, they didn't choose you. And I remember being like, "Did they choose you?" And he said, "Yes." I can't imagine as a parent now what that must have felt like. But I think that was honestly, and please, Chuck, know that it is the first of many, many no's in my lifetime as that comes with the territory. But that was the first time that I ever experienced, I didn't make that was like not making the team. It was the first time I'd ever been told no in that way. And
Ouch.
I think I realized at a young age, I have to try to,
Right.
I have to build skills to do this. And so I just kept going, and I started taking voice lessons, and I started dancing, and I did so many community theater productions, children's shows, and which led to me starting my first regional shows, which for, someone who doesn't know, regional theater is where you are paid to do theater. And I was 10 years old when I did that for the first time, and I thought, I don't know how much they paid me. It probably wasn't much, but I thought I was rich. I had a job at 10. I was like, this is amazing.
All I did was mow grass. Anyway, go ahead.
Hey, you know what? That's amazing, and I would like to know who made more money, and it may have been you. But I genuinely, my family was the foundation of all of that. That was our thing. Music was something that we did together, and still to this day, my dad is like my best friend, and the two of us share that connection of loving music and loving theater. And he's the first one to call and ask me how an audition went. My mom too, but my dad loves performing, so he always jokes. He's like, "Oh, you are so living my dream." He's kidding, but
I can believe that. Dan was he was great on stage, and you remember, he even did some things where he helped, like he emceed some of the awards and finale shows and things like that with the show choir and for drama. So your dad was he's a special one, and I'm sure he's going to love hearing what you said. If you don't tell him yourself, he's going to love hearing you say this.
He knows. His ego doesn't need it, Chuck.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well,
I'm just kidding.
I'll leave that off the checklist. But because I'm definitely going to give him a shout, and
Perfect.
So
yes, of course.
Be interested. Obviously we're recording this as a podcast, and it'll air. Be published and aired on lovelandbeacon.com. And just Abby, I will send you a link as soon as I have it produced and published. But I'll write something too, so that's why I said I'm definitely going to call your dad and get a couple of comments from him too. So he's not going to embarrass you, right?
He would never. He'll be thrilled.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to talking with him. But
sometimes it feels like he remembers more about my life than I do. My memory can get a bit selective. People will ask me things like, "Do you remember this from high school?" And I'm like, I honestly, I don't. So he'll remember more probably about all of my theatrical happenings than maybe I do, but I'll do my best.
Well, that's just the next question. No, I was going to say, you remember this from high school, but I'm going to leave that question off. No.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know what? I was going to ask you this though, and we want to move on to what's been happening. Certainly in the last couple of years. Over these 8 years as a New Yorker and a performer. But go back for a second. to high school. Is there a performance, a show, or something that was kind of your favorite that really stood out for you in high school? Or maybe even was one of the ones that gave you like that boost of confidence? Like, I definitely want to go pursue this at the next level.
Oh, wow, yes. My first reaction is all of them. I got to perform so many roles that I could have only dreamt of doing as a young person.
Right.
I learned so much so fast. I played Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. I played Sandy in Grease. I played Fiona in Shrek. I played Mary in The Secret Garden. Every musical I did, I played a role where I was just so grateful to be there and to get to sing these songs that I was only used to belting out in my car. I would say, though, my role as Sandy in Grease, my sophomore year, was the most transformative for me in terms of my future. And I can tell you more about that, but that was one where it gave me an opportunity that led me to knowing I was going to pursue this for the rest of my life. So it would have to be that one, but you know, every young woman wants to play Elle Woods. That's just fun. But I would say, and Shrek was a blast. Oh my gosh, I have nothing bad to say about any of those roles. They were so much fun. But
as you just listed them off, I was like, oh my gosh, those were great shows, great roles. And you know what? And as you talked about Sandy and Grease, I was like, I can remember that. I can remember seeing that show. But you know, that was you guys while you were in high school. That group that you performed with at Loveland High School, amazing talent, don't you think?
Mega talented.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I seriously attribute that to show choir. I think when you get people singing and performing at such a young age, 7th grade, you know, it gives people the confidence to keep singing, and then their voices, you know, as your voice matures, you kind of start to feel more comfortable in your own skin, and you start to, you know, gain that confidence. I think that's what that did for people, and really, it helped people find their voices and their talents, and yeah, I just attribute all of that to the music program at Loveland in general, and the show choir specifically. I think that's where people's talents really were able to be honed.
Man, that is. I think you just hit the nail on the head there for sure. I mean, you know, didn't miss a dance step on that one, Abby.
Thanks. It'll be the first time I haven't missed a step.
Or should I say, missed a note in that song? But no, that's it.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So again, a great tribute to your roots here, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly prior to that, a couple minutes ago, talking about family, and it's a tremendous tribute to what family means to any of us, and obviously to you. But let's get on to what. I'm cheating. I'm not going to rattle off. Like I said, I want you to tell the listeners, tell me, what's been happening. I do have in front of me, because I'm sitting at my desk with the computer on, and I'm looking at theater, television, training, special skills, and all those lists. And I'm not going to say any of them, but it's I guess we'll say it's a pretty good looking performance resume.
Thank you.
So at least to me, it looks pretty darn good.
Thank you, Chuck. I've worked really hard for that piece of paper. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know what? Now I'm going to turn the table upside down and spread it all over the floor, because all a resume does is get you in front of them, and you know that, right? So at best, the resume gets you what? An audition?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, an audition.
Yeah. So, but anyway, like I said, I'm not going to rattle off what I can see in front of me on a computer screen right now. I'm going to let you tell us. So first of all, where was college? That was Belmont.
Yes, I went to Belmont University in Nashville. I studied at the Belmont School of Music in the musical theater program. I graduated in a class of 12 people. Oh, wow. It was a rigorous program. I was in class every day from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Learning music and performing and practicing, and it was wild. It was a wild 4 years, but it was great. Belmont is such a beautiful and amazing school, and I'm super grateful for my time there.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, and of course, just some additional foundations. So then after you're done at Belmont, you move out, and you already obviously had some professional experience. Going back to that first paycheck with regional theater at 10 years old,
That's right.
Which I probably did make more money cutting grass and shoveling snow back in Michigan when I was a kid. Just
You probably did.
because I know I started out in radio, television, broadcasting. We don't make a lot of money, and I'm sure you've experienced that.
Absolutely, I have.
Yeah, but anyway, you finish at Belmont, and you move out into the adult professional world of performance.
That's
right. Where did that start for you?
Yeah, so I graduated from Belmont in 2018 and signed with an agent here in New York City. That agent I was connected to that team through a mentor of mine, and they basically said, we'll sign you as long as you're in the city. So I moved up here with 3 suitcases and lived in my friend's room for 3 months in Harlem. And I loved it. Harlem's amazing, and it was wild and fun and so different. Talk about different from small town Cincinnati. It is such a privilege to live in New York City and to get to see so many cultures and people and walks of life. It has been the joy of my life to live here and to get to experience life in its many forms, honestly. So I moved up here, signed with my agent, and kind of hit the ground running with Broadway auditions. Something most people don't know is you can't just audition for Broadway. It's actually really hard to get appointments to audition for shows. So agents help you get seen. They help you get into those rooms. I always say that I came from the generation of kids whose parents told them to follow their dreams. So there are a lot of us here and a lot of really talented people who deserve these roles and these opportunities. So, it's as cutthroat as you think it is, but also the community is really welcoming and supportive. But that being said, the agent kind of helped me start getting seen. I had the tremendous opportunity in Nashville to work for a theater company called Studio 10. And I had many opportunities with them to perform regionally in Nashville with Tony Award winners and Broadway stars and lots of people that, it gave me that experience of being in a rehearsal room and being at a show of extremely high caliber from the time I was 19 years old. So I had already been working, so when I got here, I just continued working, and on my first day here, I was in an Uber, and I got an email from that company with an offer to come back to Nashville that winter to do another show with them. So I had that job lined up, and in between the shows, I worked as a nanny. I babysat 2 amazing little boys and became super close with their family, and I would pick them up from school and help them with their homework and make them dinner and hang out with them and audition in the morning for 2 years. So that's kind of how that looked. That's how that worked.
What a great, that's an amazing story. I mean, how cool is that, though, to have that opportunity to, and again, it's like you were part of another family unit too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they said that from the beginning. I was very grateful that the people I worked for were so extremely wonderful, and I view them as friends now. And we had a great time, and I love their kids. It was a great job. I'm very, very glad that it was them.
Well, it sounds like, got a foot down and moving on. So tell us more. Like what came next, or what are some of the shows that you've done, and maybe, pick a couple that really stand out for you that have helped, like, maybe keep the career moving forward for you.
Absolutely. So that winter I went to Studio 10 and I performed as Babette in Beauty and the Beast. She's a feather duster. That was lots of fun with a French accent. So I went ahead and did that, and then got seen for a lot of Broadway shows when I returned from that. And that was my first kind of time getting really close to being on Broadway. And there was a moment there where I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to get this at 21? And I didn't. And I got so close. I was in these final callbacks for this huge project. I felt I had imposter syndrome to the max. Whereas now, if you're in those rooms, you're kind of like, oh, why didn't I get that job? At this time, I was just so grateful to be there. I seriously was like, like, oh my gosh, this is a dream. I can't believe they like me. I'm like going in and singing for these people that I can't even believe I was in the same room as, and they were so kind and welcoming to me, and so I got to work very closely with them in that audition process. And then when I didn't get that, I was like, okay, I do at least feel like I can do this. I know I can do this. So after that, that's when COVID hit, and I was like, okay, there's no performing anywhere. And we really did see the industry change a lot after the pandemic. And during the pandemic, obviously everything shut down, but even post-pandemic, and this will be my shameless plug for people, please invest your money and your time in the arts. Go see live theater, go see performances, go see movies in theaters again. It's just like we've taken such a dive since COVID, and the industry obviously still exists in a beautiful way, but it is different, and a lot of the audiences haven't been back the way that they were before the pandemic. So, when that happened, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? New York really shut down, and so I went to my parents' house in good old Loveland, Ohio, which actually my parents don't live in Loveland anymore. They've moved, but they were still in my childhood home, so I went back there and hung out with them for a few months and was like, what am I going to do? And ended up moving to Nashville to do some work before heading back to the city. But all of that to say, as the pandemic kind of came to a close, I was offered a job on a cruise ship by a dear friend of mine whose husband worked in casting for Norwegian Cruise Lines. And he called me and said, Abby, can you be on a ship in 3 days? And I said, what? / no. And he said, this is an amazing opportunity. It would be a replacement contract. It kind of just walked me through the process of what that job looked like. And it was for a luxury cruise line called Regent Cruise Lines. It is still to this day that ship is one of my favorite places ever. It was such a dreamy job, and I took it and I packed all my stuff in 2 suitcases, and I flew to Florida and I rehearsed, and I got on this ship, and I was able to travel all day and perform at night. So I traveled everywhere, through the Caribbean to the Mediterranean, up through the Baltic. I spent time everywhere, and then at night we would do these shows that I just loved the shows, and I loved the environment. I got to sing with Shania Twain.
Oh, wow.
She was a guest on this particular cruise, and she found me, and she said, I want to sing with you. And I said, I want to sing with you. And so my parents happened to be on board. There are secret videos of it that I'm telling everyone about now, but it was a dream. We just sang together and I enjoyed that experience. It was just a dream, to be able to sing with her. And then we had Broadway stars come on, and we performed with them. And it was absolutely the most incredible experience and group of people. Those people are still like family to me. I lived on that ship for about 8 months, so we were very, very close, and we traveled the world together. So it was amazing. And then I did one more ship after that, and I got to do Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the Fiji, Tahiti, Alaska, Hawaii. So I have, I've been everywhere. Like the song says, singing and dancing and singing for my supper. So I did that for years, and then all of that kind of led to my current project, which is a really cool story that I would love to tell you if you're open to it.
Well, whatever you can tell us, we're definitely open to hear that. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to Loveland High School, if you'll join me here, to my sophomore year of Loveland High School. I performed as Sandy in Grease, and that was our Cappies show that year. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Cappies. You know the Cappies?
I do know the Cappies story, because obviously I'm close friends with Teresa and Steve Kovacs, and of course, Steve, Steve's the one that said, "Chuck, you have to talk to Abby," and here we are. Thank you, Steve Kovacs, for giving all of us this. Yeah.
And Teresa.
And trust me,
Yes.
Teresa's behind all of that. So Steve is.
I love that.
The two wonderful
Amazing people.
I was going to say two more wonderful, amazing people. But anyway, go back to your story. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So the Cappies, no, absolutely, no, please. The Cappies are like Cincinnati's version of like the Tonys for high schoolers, and this panel of students goes around to all the schools in the greater Cincinnati area, and they basically nominate people for different categories. And that particular year, when I did Grease, I was nominated for Best Lead Actress in a Musical. And you go to the Aronoff, and it's absolutely full to the brim of high school students. It is the most amazing. Everyone wears a fancy dress, and I still to this day am like, that was so much fun. But that was my sophomore year of high school, so I was 14, and I won the award that year for Best Lead Actress in a Musical. And that year was the year that Drew and Leah Lachey from Cincinnati, they've worked everywhere, but specifically from 98 Degrees and Broadway and Radio City Music Hall and all of those amazing things. They started a camp for young performers called Lachey Arts, and they said whoever wins these two awards this year gets a scholarship to this camp.
Oh, wow.
So I won the scholarship that year, and I went to this camp. And before I went, I was nervous, and I remember telling my mom, like, I don't know if I want to go to this. Like, I don't know what to expect. I'm not going to have any friends. And my mom was like, you are going to this camp. And I went the first day, and of course, I had, like, the best day of my life, and I was over the moon, and I couldn't wait to go back. And what they did was they created this camp at the School for Creative and Performing Arts that was full of actual Broadway performers that were flown in to create a showcase and teach you the actual inner workings of how to be a professional musical theater actor. And I had never seen anything like that before. I was all of a sudden surrounded by these people who had jobs that I couldn't even believe were real. I absolutely fell in love with the work that they were doing, and I was like, I'll be back at this next year. And so I returned to the camp 2 more times. I became their intern. I became their babysitter. We became good friends. And so over the course of time, at one point I was their assistant. I mean, seriously, we run the gamut, but they are some of my nearest and dearest friends now, and I'm so grateful for that camp, because what it did was it gave me this opportunity at a young age to be really well connected with people in my industry, but also to learn from people who actually knew what they were doing and knew how to help me put my best foot forward. Now, fast forward all this time, and while I was away on one of my ships or doing a contract or something, I was away working somewhere, Leah and Drew created a musical called Labelless, and Labelless started at the School for Creative and Performing Arts, and there's so many podcasts and interviews and everything out there about how Labelless started, but it really is this incredible story of heart, humanity, and hope. And it started with an exercise that they did at SCPA on empathy, where they asked people to write down a way they hadn't felt seen, and when everyone put their papers in the bowl, they went home that night and dumped them out on their counter and saw what people had written and cried and couldn't believe the things that people even in Cincinnati were going through.
Yeah.
And it led to the creation of this show, which was all focused on sharing people's real, genuine, authentic stories and connecting with others. My favorite thing about it is it's not political, it is not religious, it is not polarizing in any way. It is just people's stories. And I fell in love with the show when they had it at Cincinnati Playhouse in the park, and I told them I want to be in this. They laughed, and I said, no, I'm serious, put me in this. And I auditioned for them, and I waited until the right track opened for years, and then the show went on tour, and then last year they said, we're taking the show off Broadway in New York City.
Yeah.
And it's going to be right in the Times Square area. For those who don't know what off-Broadway means, it means it is a show in New York City with a smaller house size than on-Broadway. So it's right there in the heart of it, in the theater district and everything. It's just not an actual Broadway theater. It is an off-Broadway theater. They're just different theaters. Right. So Labelist came off-Broadway last year, and I made my off-Broadway debut in that show. And I was able to do that with the most incredible group of people. I feel like there's been such an amazing pattern in my life where I have so often been blessed with the greatest group of human beings to work with. And when your art is that vulnerable and it's so we touch on so many topics in the show. We touch on racism, sexism, homophobia, classism, disability awareness, so many incredible topics. And to do that with a group of people you really trust, and to get to tell your story but also connect with other people in the audience. I've had so many people tell me, hey, this really meant so much to me. I've been through this. Yeah. It's the most amazing part of my life, honestly, is to get to be a part of that show, and to get to have done it off Broadway last year was just a dream.
You know, and I think that's the one that, again, just for a second, you know, Steve and Teresa Kovacs brought to my attention. I guess that got, you know, it must have received some strong reviews and things like that. But, I can hear, you know, I can certainly relate, because that, you know, I'll use a simple term, a tug at the heartstrings. Mm-hmm. And then everybody relates because they've been through something. And if you guys are performing that, I can only imagine what that does mean to you, and certainly to the audience. That's just that's special stuff.
Well, we're all human, right? And we've all been through something, and we all have love to give and something to share. And to get to do that on stage and connect with people in the world afterward, I've connected with so many people online. Last year the show went to an enormous conference for teachers, and we performed in front of, I believe it was 8,000 educators in Dallas, Texas, and we were able to. I've connected with so many of those people, just those amazing teachers that have reached out and said, thank you so much for sharing this. That was amazing. I can't wait to see it. It's the Get Your Teach On organization. But it was just there's so much, I can't even explain the amount of gratitude that I have for getting to do something and work in a way that helps make the world a better place, because art does that by itself, right? Theater does that by itself. Sure. You go see a show and you love it and you're like, oh, it brought me joy, and this is still so joyful and so hopeful, and it also brings people together in a way that I couldn't be more grateful that that's the path that I'm on. And without saying too much more, I'll just say that it's not over. It's not over yet. Right.
Well, you know what? And not over, but we are just about done with time here. So we got about 2 minutes.
Yes.
And I'm going to say this first off, the question. So Labelless, what is the stat? Yes. Is that show ongoing now? Are you still performing that, or what's happening there?
Well, the journey's not over, so stay tuned for more. Okay. But the show, that is a project that I am currently excited about. But
very good. Okay. That's the one.
I'm not currently in it today.
I got you. Well, and then so now is that difference, because I know we've talked a little bit offline. We had some exchanges by email and so on. So I know you have something coming up, which I guess is a certainty, that's coming up in May. Is that right, Abby?
I don't know. I'll have to wait to find out.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to say, so this is, as we sit and record this right now, it is Friday, March the 27th. So in about a month, as we get to the end of April, I'm going to reach out to you again, and
you call me back. You call me back 1 month from now.
I will do that for sure. I'm making notes. I'm writing it down.
Yes,
so I'm going to call you back.
Of course.
Listen, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Abby, and so I'm sure there's so much more that you can share and that we would all love to hear. So I really will. I will be back in touch with you as we get near the end of April, and hope whatever you have news to share then, I'm sure the people will be excited to hear, because I am.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that I got to talk to you today. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for reaching out. I love my hometown, and I'm grateful to be exactly where I'm from. So I really appreciate any chance to get to connect.
Well, you are most welcome. It was truly my pleasure. Abby, stay well. Break a leg every chance you get.
Thank you.
And just again, thank you so much. So everybody listening today, thank you listeners for joining in. That was Abby Docherty. I'm Chuck Gibson, and this was Loveland Beacon Talks.